Here.
Trustee Garvey.
Here.
Trustee Zalick.
Here.
Trustee Geezer. Trustee Fruzzoloni.
Here.
Trustee McCarthy.
Here.
Mayor Savarino.
Please rise and face the flag.
I was really excited about this part.
I know.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a motion to approve the minutes of the April 18th, 2022 Village Board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Trustee Garvey, seconded by Trustee Zalick. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Berger.
Abstain.
Trustee Garvey.
Aye.
Trustee Zalick.
Aye.
Trustee Fruzzoloni.
Aye.
Trustee McCarthy.
Aye. For the listening post, we do not have anybody in the audience. And Tia, do we have anybody?
We received no electronic comments.
Thank you very much. We do have a proclamation designated May 20th, Bike to Work Day. Trustee Berger, would you like to read that?
The answer is yes.
Why, yes, I would. I would have practiced it before the meeting, but.
That's no fun.
Whereas for more than a century, the bicycle has been a utilitarian, economical, and environmentally sound means of personal transportation, recreation, and fitness. And whereas the village encourages biking as a recreational activity and an alternate means of transportation through over 23 miles of paths and trails that connect the parks, points of interest, and the transportation hubs. And whereas the village is extending the Coon Road Trail this year, the Lies Road Trail next year, and intends to construct the Southeast Trail the following year with the assistance of the state and federal funding. And whereas the village recognizes the bicycle as a legitimate roadway vehicle and therefore is entitled to legal and responsible use of village roadway and pedestrian paths. And whereas the village encourages the increased use of the bicycle benefiting all residents by improving air quality, reducing traffic congestion and noise, decreasing the use of the dependence upon finite energy sources, and fostering physical fitness. And whereas the village recognizes the use of bicycles as a viable mode of transportation, endeavors to promote safe and responsible bicycling, and is committed to incorporating the development of bicycle facilities in its overall land use plan. And whereas May is National Bicycle Month. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Pro Tem Matt McCarthy, who is over there, and Carroll Stream Board of Trustees, DuPage County, Illinois, in the exercise of the home rule powers, does hereby proclaim May 20th, Bike to Work Day in Carroll Stream, and encourages all residents to ride their bicycles to work, the store, to the park, and their neighborhoods, and with friends and family, and also challenge local employers to incentivize their employees that have safe means of bike travel to their workplace to do so as well. Proclaim this day the second day of May 2022.
Sorry about that, Jeff, dropping it on you. We do have a public hearing to open. This is a public hearing for 4 North 210 Old Gary Avenue. The public hearing is noticed to receive comments from the public regarding the proposed annexation agreement for the property at 4 North 210 Old Gary Avenue, owned by Leuna, did I say that right? Chicagoland Laborers District Council Fund.
I will make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by trustee Frisolini, seconded by trustee Garvey. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Berger.
Aye.
Trustee Garvey.
Aye.
Trustee Zalick.
Aye.
Trustee Frusaloni.
Aye.
Trustee McCarthy.
Aye. Do you want to make any comment to open?
No, staff is available to answer any questions regarding the annexation agreement, but the annexation agreement has been on file with the village clerk's office for anybody who wants to take a look at it, and there was the notice that was published in the Daily Herald indicating that today we would be having the public hearing on the annexation agreement.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, I will.
Mayor Pro Tem, just one other thing, and that is the actual annexation itself and the zoning will be done at the next meeting. It won't be done this evening.
Okay, thank you. With that, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Zalick, seconded by trustee Berger. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Berger.
Aye.
Trustee Garvey.
Aye.
Trustee Zalick.
Aye.
Trustee Frusaloni.
Aye.
Trustee McCarthy.
Aye.
Just a clarification on that. Should the public hearing be continued to the next meeting?
It doesn't have to be, no.
Okay. Okay. That was stated in the memo to the board. Yes.
Okay, then we can do that if the individual who made the motion would agree to change their motion to being a continuation till next meeting.
I do.
So moved.
And the second?
So moved. Second.
Recall the roll.
Recall the roll.
So trustee Frusaloni motioned.
No, no,
and
trustee Zalick,
Trustee Zalick motioned.
trustee Berger seconded. I was just telling them what they needed to do.
Okay, gotcha. I just heard your voice. Okay. All right, so trustee Berger.
Aye.
Trustee Garvey.
Aye.
Trustee Zalick.
Aye.
Trustee Frusaloni.
Aye.
Trustee McCarthy.
Aye. Is there a motion to select a consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Frisolini, seconded by trustee Berger. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Berger.
Aye.
Trustee Garvey.
Aye.
Trustee Zalick.
Aye.
Trustee Frusaloni.
Aye.
Trustee McCarthy.
Aye. All yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Board and Commission reports. Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals, 21-0026, Layuna, 4N 210 Old Gary Avenue, rezoning to I Industrial District upon annexation, recommended approval 4-0. Special use permit for Union Hall and Training Facility, front yard building setback variation, recommended approval subject to conditions 4-0. No village board action requested until May 16th, 2022 meeting. Twenty-two 0014, Village of Carroll Stream, 500 North Gary Avenue, zoning text amendment, Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, miscellaneous modifications, recommended approval 4-0.
Yes.
Yes.
Staff reports and recommendations. Presentation on grant-funded tree inventory, urban forest management plan, and tree preservation and protection ordinance.
Yes.
Off.
That is a presentation.
Okay. To be pulled off by trustee McCarthy. All right, that has been pulled off the consent agenda. Approval of an agreement with Studio GC for planning, design, cost estimating, and bidding services for the Public Works Facilities Improvements Project up to an amount of $57,350.
Yes.
Yes.
Approval of a contract in the amount of $28,000 with Pyrotechnico Fireworks, Inc., subject to Chapter 5, Article 8, Sections 5-8-14A and B of the Carroll Stream Code of Ordinances.
Yes.
Yes.
Approval of the Taste of Carroll Stream agreement between the Village of Carroll Stream Chamber of Commerce, and Carroll Stream Rotary for the sale of beer, wine, hard seltzer, and hard cranberry lemonade for the Taste of Carroll Stream at Town Center on June 11th, 2022.
Yes.
Yes.
Approval of a contract for janitorial service for the municipal center with Crystal Maintenance Services in the amount specified in their bid packet, $49,860, with the option to renew the contract up to 3 additional years, subject to satisfactory performance during the initial term of the contract.
Yes.
Yes.
Approval of the fiscal year 22-23 pond and stream maintenance native plant management contract with Bedrock Earthscapes LLC for $24,465 pursuant to the provisions of Section 5-8-14B of the Carroll Stream Code of Ordinances.
Yes.
Yes.
Approval of a construction contract to Earthworks Land Improvement and Development Corp. At the contract unit prices with an estimated total price of $3,488,664.
Yes.
Yes.
Ordinances. Ordinance amending Chapter 16 of the Carroll Stream Code of Ordinances, Unified Development Ordinance, Miscellaneous Modifications, C-F1B.
Yes.
Yes.
That is ordinance number 2022-05-21. Ordinance amending Chapter 11, Article 2 of the Carroll Stream Code of Ordinances by increasing the number of Class F liquor licenses from 9 to 10 for Bella's Pizza LLC, doing business as Bella's Pizza, located at 1045 Fountain View Drive.
Yes.
Yes.
That is ordinance number 2022-05-22. Ordinance amending Chapter 11, Article 2 of the Carroll Stream Code of Ordinances by increasing the number of Class V gaming licenses from 17 to 18 for Masters Pancake House, Inc., doing business as Mapleberry Pancake House, located at 1276 Coon Road.
Yes.
Yes.
Off.
Pulled off by trustee Garvey. Resolution committing local funds for construction and construction engineering for the Coon Road Bike Path Project, section number 15-000-60-00-BT, Lees Road to Army Trail Road.
Yes.
Yes.
That is resolution number 3246. Resolution authorizing the execution of an Illinois Department of Transportation engineering services agreement for federal participation with regard to Coon Road Bike Trail extension from Lees Road to Army Trail Road.
Yes.
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 That is resolution number 3247. New business, reappointment of Anthony C. Moneta to the Police Pension Fund Board.
Yes.
Yes.
Payment of bills. Regular bills, April 19th, 2022 through May 2nd, 2022.
Yes.
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 Addendum warrants, April 19th, 2022 through May 2nd, 2022.
Yes.
Yes.
That concludes the items on the consent agenda.
Is there a motion to put those items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by trustee Garvey, seconded by trustee Frusaloni. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Berger.
Aye.
Trustee Garvey.
Aye.
Trustee Zalick.
Aye.
Trustee Frusaloni.
Aye.
Trustee McCarthy.
Aye. Is there a motion to approve these items by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Zalick, seconded by trustee Berger. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Berger.
Aye.
Trustee Garvey.
Aye.
Trustee Zalick.
Aye.
Trustee Frusaloni.
Aye.
Trustee McCarthy.
Aye. Okay, the two that are not on the consent agenda, we'll do them in reverse. Trustee Garvey, you pulled off the gaming license.
Right, I just wanted a clarification on Chapter 11-2-7, it says we can let 9 licenses for this. So does this ordinance change that, the wording of that, to allow 18? We've been
This
doing
increases the number of Class V licenses. We don't have a set number of licenses available. Those are usually based on requests that are made to the liquor commissioner. So this one was deemed to be agreeable to the liquor commissioner, and that's why it was put on the agenda. So it was increased by that number in the code.
Okay, so it currently says not more than 9 Class V licenses shall be issued.
Correct,
So this acceptance of this ordinance allows it to go up to 18.
correct.
Okay. And
Well, it allows a number of V licenses to go up by the number that's currently stated in the code. They're only increased based on the approval of the village board.
Yeah, we don't leave any open.
Right.
We don't have any open licenses. They increase or decrease based on if a new place comes in or a place leaves. Like when if a place closes.
Okay.
We do the same thing with the liquor license. We actually drop the number of allowed down to whatever number we actually have active.
Okay, I understand that, but it does say not more than 9 shall be issued. I get where none are when we established this class of license, there's none issued, and we have to amend and create an ordinance, it's,
That's
the
what you're
number.
doing.
Right.
But once it gets to
That's
nine,
what you're doing. This is the ordinance that increases the number. So there are 17. What you're reading from is when it started, there were 9. It's
Okay.
been increased over the period of time to 17, and now this is being increased to 18.
So will this new ordinance then say not more than 18?
Yes.
Yes,
Just like it says not more than 9 back in the
Yes.
day?
correct.
so when we accepted that original 11-2-7, we issued 9 licenses at that
Correct.
time.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Is there a motion to approve that ordinance?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Berger, seconded by trustee Frusaloni. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Berger.
Aye.
Trustee Garvey.
No.
Trustee Zalick.
Aye.
Trustee Frizzaloni.
Aye.
Trustee McCarthy.
Aye.
The motion passed, and it is ordinance number 2022-05-23.
And the last item that wasn't on the consent agenda, we have a presentation tonight by the grant-funded tree inventory, the inventory, I'm sorry, the Urban Forest Management Plan and the Tree Preservation and Protection Ordinance. I believe we're handing that off to Phil.
Well, it was working before the meeting started.
Did you turn it off and turn it back on?
Oh, you work for IT?
Yeah, I do.
Control Alt-Delete.
Yeah.
It's an old picture tube, it's warming up.
There you go.
There we go.
Name goes
Okay.
on before the VNF one.
All yours, Phil.
Thank you. So T and I have recently worked on this, actually started with Sam Bargy back early in 2021, when we pursued and received a grant to do a number of things. First of all, it's an urban and community forest grant we secured for $20,000. Our matching technically is $10,000, which appeared in our budget. And we also committed to additional in-kind services, which we'll easily make with tree trimming, tree planting, tree removals, all of the meetings that we've spent staff time reviewing and preparing these reports. So the total project cost a little over $30,000. We partnered with the administrator, Morton Arboretum. They've been very good advising us on how to comply with the grant terms, as well as their competitively selected consultant called Great Lakes Urban Forestry Management. The goals, in brief, were to complete a tree inventory. Our first and only tree inventory was conducted at least 15 years ago by staff in Public Works, management staff, and it was very basic.
That was due to the Emerald Ash, right?
It was shortly before that.
Right.
But it was good timing because we needed it shortly thereafter. But also to develop an urban forest management plan. Now, I'll go into some detail about what this includes, but a lot of it is what we've already been doing. It's kind of a formalization to say, these are our goals for managing the 8,000 plus trees in our parkways. And we hope to be able to commit these resources and move our tree inventory in this direction. None of it is written in stone. None of it commits future budget dollars, but it does allow us to plan. Plan the goals, plan the resources that we'll need to meet the goals. Part of the grant also required us to either adopt or update ordinance or ordinances which protect and preserve trees in the public right-of-way. This is not an ordinance, nor was the survey about trees on private property. This is about trees in the public right-of-way. All of our work is coming very close to being done, and which is good because we have to have it done by July 1st, at which time I'll then submit all of our requests for reimbursement.
Have we updated our ordinance yet or not yet?
We're going to bring the ordinance to you in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
I should step back. One of the reasons for the presentation tonight is to tell you we've been working on this for well over a year. The Urban Forestry Management Plan is a 75-page document. Yes, we killed a lot of trees in pursuit of forestry management plan. And our full intention is to give it to you well before the next meeting so you can review it in full. We want to present you with the highlights tonight, both of the management plan, the inventory, and then the ordinance. So when you see both of them, there'll be no surprises what we'll be presenting to you. Just some interesting data that we gleaned from our inventory. We have 8,237 Parkway trees. Tree coverage, now this number does include private and public trees of about 56 acres throughout the village. And once you see the plan, you'll see why that number is important, because it helps factor into what they call the tree canopy in the entire village. This is an interesting number. Speaking of EAB, 43% of our Parkway trees are under 6 inches diameter at breast height. That's DBH. And that number is so high because we cut down 3,000 ash trees, most of which were mature trees. Now, we did replant with 3,200 trees, but these are still very immature trees. Oxygen production generated by our tree inventory, 142 tons per year, 1.5 tons of pollution removed, benefits to residents in property value, in heating and cooling benefits is over $1.1 million per year, and the trees have a commodity value of about $6.2 million. We have begun to integrate the data from the inventory, which includes an assessment of each tree, a location of each tree, identification of the genus and species and variety, and into our mapping system. And we're also counting each tree as an asset in terms of our cartograph, our asset management program. So we're tracking cradle to grave on each tree, any work we do on it. Interestingly, our prior records indicated there were 7,414 Parkway trees. We picked up through the inventory over 800 of them. That's what happened over the time from when we started this inventory over 15 years ago through the cutting down of 3,000 trees and replacement of 3,200 trees up till now. The inventory wasn't as sophisticated as what we now have. We also know there are 758 open planting spaces in areas where Parkway trees have been previously allowed. So we do know we have room to grow our urban forest over the next 10 years, and you'll see that through the plan, how we're going to address those open spaces. Now, interestingly, we kind of couch that with Parkway trees where they've previously been allowed. We also think there are another 2,000 spaces where Parkway trees previously weren't allowed. You'll see in...
Why weren't they allowed? Do you know offhand?
This was before me, and Bill may be able to speak to this, but during the very aggressive growth in the 80s and 90s, and you can see kind of the blank spots.
Yeah.
Lots were a little bit smaller. Trees were actually planted as a requirement of development in the front yard, the private property, and not in the parkway. Now, some of those parkways are wide enough to take a tree. Some of them definitely are not. So for, I think, about a 10-year period, the village made the decision not to plant trees in the parkway. So staff is not recommending we address those 2,000 spaces, but we thought the plan should reflect the history, and if the village is inclined at some point after we catch up with the other 750 empty spaces, perhaps that's something that might be addressed on a case-by-case or a widespread basis. But we made sure that the plan acknowledged that they're there.
Of the 758, and I'm assuming that's mostly in front of houses in the Parkway, if said resident didn't want a tree there, are we gonna force it on them?
No, we never have.
I know we never have. I'm just making sure this plan doesn't turn it into where we're planting it whether you like it or not.
No, we understand that probably doesn't make for good tree care because
Right.
we do ask residents to water trees after they go in, so.
Phil, does that include trees that were removed and you haven't replanted them yet?
Right.
Because they were diseased or whatever?
Correct.
Okay.
And we've already got a list of well over 100 where we've previously cut down trees, and we will plant in those areas this fall. Our budget contains funding for 150 trees. By the time this spring and summer season is over, we'll be up to 150.
I'm looking forward to my new tree. And for the record, my tree they took out last fall was very diseased, so.
The Urban Forest Management Plan, again, the requirement of the grant, it reflects what we do, and we already met a lot of the recommended by the consultant and the Arboretum and the grant, many of the strategies and practices, best management practices that they wanted included. But it did help us establish some goals, manage our removals, best management practices, enhance tree preservation, increasing our tree diversity. We all lived through EAB and understand the need for tree diversity. And staff has been doing that, but this really brought to bear some professional resources through the Arboretum, through the consultant to help us make a good plan for that. And not only expanding diversity, but finding the right spot for the right tree. Increasing the tree canopy, again, this is village-wide, so private and public. I think we're at about 13.5% tree canopy, and they're recommending 15%. So our plans for the next 10 years, we can only obviously impact public property, but also include public education and encouraging people to plant trees on their property. Perhaps even in the industrial centers where we have large expanses of open green space.
With that, are we gonna find ways to help them, saying this is a good tree to plant there, this isn't type of thing? I mean, we don't want somebody going out and getting the least expensive tree, planting a bunch of them.
Or planting a willow tree.
Right, so we're gonna have some type of information when we get there.
Yes.
Available to residents if they wanna help grow the urban forest in their private property of the good and the bad and the ugly.
Good point. And one of the reasons we asked and the board approved for an official arborist position was to do just that, really step up into public education formally. Now, in the past, if somebody calls and says, hey, I think my tree in my backyard is dying, we go out and we look at it and we help them. But I think we can get proactive with short videos, maybe host a seminar or a webinar a couple of times a year. So that's in the plan, actually.
Excuse me, Phil.
Yes.
13% that we currently have and the 15% that's recommended, that's the entire village, right? It's
Correct.
not just private.
Correct. So we'll be able to directly impact coverage in the parkways, but indirectly through education and encouraging people on private land, too.
Thanks.
The report, the Forestry Management Plan, looks at potential impacts of climate change. There are zones, for instance, in the United States where certain tree species do well and don't do well. Those have already started to shift a little bit, depending on the temperatures and the moisture. So while we may not see any dramatic impact in the next 5 years, we may in 10, and 15, and 20. So the report acknowledges the potential impact of climate change on the decisions we make about trees. And then all of that work will help us establish our short and our long-term budgeting, from planting to pruning, removals, doing tree risk assessments. We're fortunate now we have one person on staff who was trained in what's called a track system, and that's a nationally accepted American Arboriculture Society standard method for assessing the risk that a tree presents. It's general health and then the risk that it presents. So when we get a call from a resident saying, hey, I got a branch that doesn't look so good, we can go out and make record of it. We'll store that. We'll either act on it right away or determine that it's okay, and we'll store that record in our cartograph system. And from tree to tree to tree to tree, it'll be the same assessment form. And it'll be the form that this consultant uses and that many, many, many agencies use along the way, which will also help us with our own risk management and being able to demonstrate to IRMA if a claim is made about a branch that fell on a car or something like that, whether we have record of a potentially dangerous branch and how we assessed it and that we assessed it. We did put together a mission statement, which I'll ask you to read when we do give you the plan. We're putting the final touches on it as we speak. Again, some interesting things we'll be addressing. The grayish lines show our current DBH of the trees that are out there, and the green shows where we'd like to be in 10 years. So obviously, the 0 to 6 inches one should go down significantly, and then very slowly, we're raising through age and good tree care, the larger trees. We talked earlier about diversity, 10-year goals. You'll notice that currently, a full 50% of our trees are the maples and, why can't I read that second? The honey locusts. Full 50% of our current stock. Add in the lindens and you're at 62%. So clearly we have some work to do in diversity. Now, we're not going to go out and start cutting down maple trees. That's not our plan. But as they come down, even though a lot of people like a variety of maple trees, we're going to have to really educate people and present various options. So on the right, you'll see what our 10-year plan is, where that portion of maples and locusts really becomes much smaller, and we get a much broader variety.
So I would assume those 700-plus spots we have will not be maples and honey locusts, et cetera?
Very few. We have developed and will include in the plan a list of approved trees and not approved trees. There are a couple maple varieties on there where in the early years, we probably won't be planting any, but as time goes on, because there are some very attractive maple trees, and some people really like them, we'll probably be able to work some back in. We actually have numbers assigned to each and every tree type. How many we have, how many we want.
Phil, is there any trees that we currently have any concerns on having lived through Emerald Ash? I mean, is there any tree stock that we have where we're concerned that there might be something that could take out another 2,000 or 3,000 trees? I know honey locusts can have those little bugs, and once they're infested with those, because I had a tree on our private property and we had to take it down because they basically came in and they bored into the trunk, and they're like, it's your tree's dying. So, I mean, I know that locusts, the honey locusts are susceptible to things like that, but I mean, could that be something that could become widespread?
We asked that very question to our consultant, what's next?
Yeah.
For EAB, and his answer was, we don't know, but something's going to be next. Whether it's to the magnitude of EAB or not, but what we're going to embark on in terms of diversity is going to play a large role in that, in whatever happens. Okay. Unfortunately, we did plant a fairly diverse amount or variety of trees after.
The replantings, right.
Right. More maples than I today would probably plant, but certainly a decent variety.
Okay.
I'm going to pass this off to Tia because she's done the work on ordinance. Attorney, I think, has looked at this. Maybe not.
Tia did the bulk of the work.
He did the bulk of the work, but we also just got final approval from the Arboretum today that it has met the goals of the grant. Before I move off to the ordinance, any other questions?
I'm sorry. Actually, just one, it's just tree-related, just because I saw a statement on it on social media. So when we do plant trees, we always put the green, looks like a green plastic bag. Can you re-explain why that's there and why it's a good thing, not a bad thing?
Sure. That's called a gator bag, one of the manufacturer's names of it. And the idea is to slowly water a new tree over time. So I think about every 2 weeks, you're supposed to fill it up, and it basically drips. We've had varying levels of success and failure with that. Some people have done it wonderfully. Some people did not do it at all. We provided door hangers with explanations. We have, now that we're not planting 600 trees every spring and fall like we were for a while after EAB, our staff can manage filling those things in. We also tested a new device that I think you shared with us, something called a tree diaper, which is a ring that actually lies under the mulch, but holds water, super saturated, and then also drips. So we're testing some of those in town. So yeah, it's critical to get water to these new trees in their first year or two. And we've decided that that's something we have to do.
Okay, thank you.
So, as Phil mentioned, there were several requirements of the grant that we received, and one of them is that we update our ordinance to include a couple of key provisions. One of them is a statement of the purpose and the value of having a healthy urban forest. In addition, you have to include a scope of what measures you're planning to take to preserve and protect your urban forest, as well as details on your management, planting, maintenance, and removal plans. In addition, there's specification standards like ANSI safety standards and best management practices such as the International Society of Arboriculture best practice standards. The next step is something that's new for us, and that's the formation of a tree commission. And we intend to structure that as being managed by staff with multiple department representatives. There is a reference to approved and restricted tree species, which are going to be more detailed in the urban forest management plan. The intent with the ordinance is to meet those requirements of the grant, but not overburden our code with too many details that might change over time, such as which species are best suited to our environment. There's also details on what kind of replacement requirements we'll be putting into place and fees and penalties, which is a requirement of this grant. It also just provides some general oversight and authority and recommendations. So some of the examples with the updates for best management practices would include changing the minimum space between Parkway trees. Previously, our ordinance stated that there should be a minimum of 20 feet between trees, but as science has moved on, as there's been more experimentation, they're finding that that's not quite enough, at least not for best tree health. So instead, under advisement of the Arboretum, we moved that up to 30 feet between our trees. We also include some more details on pruning standards, as well as some more requirements and suggestions related to tree preservation during construction. Now, the requirements of a preservation plan are only required if it's affecting a public tree. So let's say there's some work going on private property, but the equipment is going to go over the drip line of one of our public trees, then we're going to work with them to establish a tree preservation plan to make sure that this important public commodity is protected through the process. We can also serve in an advisory capacity if a private property is doing work and they want to protect trees and vegetation on their private property, so that we're able to provide insight. But once again, I do want to emphasize that we are not going to be going into and controlling what they're doing with their trees on their private property. It's just simply a resource that we want to have available. So one of our big changes would be the establishment of a tree commission, and this is a requirement of the grant. The representatives will serve for 3 years. We intend to have a representative from administration, a representative from Public Works, and then we will also have an additional representative that would be either from Engineering Services or Community Development, depending on which department has a staff member that would be available and a good fit to serve at that time. The Tree Commission will have to meet at least twice a year, and some of their responsibilities will include providing necessary updates to the Urban Forest Management Plan, providing recommendations for the village board. They may administer projects that may be assigned to them by the village manager's office, and they will also have to submit an annual report. And we're currently anticipating that that annual report would be submitted to the board as part of our budget process so that we can highlight some more details and metrics as we move into that process. I want to emphasize that this tree commission serves in an advisory capacity. They may provide recommendations, they may provide insight, but they do not in any way inhibit the abilities of the Public Works Director, the village manager, and of course the village board in making decisions about our urban forest.
Excuse me. What contribution, we've agreed to have an arborist become on staff, right? Isn't that part of our budget? What, how is that arborist going to contribute to that commission, if at all? How do you anticipate that?
I expect that the arborist may very well be the representative from Public Works on that commission.
All right, thank you.
The next segment of the ordinance that is another change in direction would be that we are required to have a tree removal application. This is not something that we anticipate would have a significant amount of use because this ordinance is specifically geared towards public property trees. And if a tree is going to be removed on public property, most of the time it's going to be the village who is going to see that need through our tree inspection process. However, if there is an unusual situation where a tree does not immediately meet our expectation of something that should be removed, but there is a resident that believes for some reason that it may be suitable to remove that tree, they can submit an application and potentially pay between a $50 to $500 fee to have that tree removed if the Public Works Director approves of that removal. An example of where this could be possible is they may have a tree that's in a certain amount of decline, but not to the level that we would require a removal, and they're interested in seeing that tree removed so that a healthier new tree can be put in place. This could also be applicable if we were to have an existing tree that becomes recategorized as an invasive species. So at the time that we planted the tree, it was within an acceptable planting species by the Morton Arboretum, but that information can change, and maybe the tree is considered invasive now, and that resident with support from the Public Works Director would like to see that invasive species removed and a more appropriate species planted. Once again, we expect this is going to be very, very rare. Having it available is a requirement of the grant, but the final decision rests with our Public Works Director, including the decision of waiving or keeping that fee.
Well, because it's going to happen very, very rare, which means it's going to happen more often than we think it will, does there have to be a fee?
No, there doesn't. We just have to create a structure from what a fee could exist, but it is always up to the Public Works Director to waive that fee should we find it appropriate.
I just hate the idea of any other type of fee to just tag on. In the ordinance, does it have to have a dollar figure?
Yes.
Can it be $1?
I think it needs to be meaningful.
I think it means to like be that, but
Needs
it
to
can
have
be
a
waived.
formula.
We're talking about private property.
No.
No. This is a public property tree.
Public property.
So if the tree in your parkway, you wanted it gone,
wanted it gone.
you'd have to get basically an
Fill out an
application.
application, right.
Yeah.
And pay for said application.
I'd pay for it.
However, it is within the Public Works Director's ability to waive that fee, which is written into the ordinance. But we are required to create a potential fee structure.
Understood.
The next segment would be a ban on residents or other individuals planting or harming public trees. So let's say someone thinks, oh, I've got this beautiful fir plant, and I'm just gonna go plant it into the Parkway because I want it to look nice. Except we don't want firs in our Parkway. We really try to limit those. This creates a structure where they could potentially have to pay a fee or a fine, depending on the size, and that they would be responsible for any restoration of that area if they damage our public property. And the same thing would happen if somebody decides to damage one of our public trees, is that there is a fine available depending on the size of the tree, between $50 to $500. And then there is also an expectation that we maintain our legal right to seek reimbursement for any costs for us to restore that public space and potentially plant a new tree. Once again, this is within the realm that the Public Works Director can waive that fine if it's deemed appropriate.
I have a question. When you say harm a public tree, I've seen people put flag holders in their trees. Now, would that consider be harming the tree, screwing into a tree?
It would be prohibited in our ordinance. The level of fine
Right.
that we would approve would be on a case-by-case basis.
And then
evaluated.
if there was a car accident and the car runs off the road, takes down a tree, or damages it enough where it has to come down, would that be also part of the restoring it?
Yes, as of right now, if somebody hits one of our trees and we're able to document that, we do seek reimbursement on the restoration and replacement cost. Where you're going to see a shift here is that there's also the possibility that we would levy a fine on top of that depending on the size of the tree. And the intent of that is to move forward with the goal of protecting our urban forest and being able to state that this is something that we value and it's a public good. So if someone is coming out here and damaging a public good, then we would like to have the ability to provide different levels of accountability.
But these violations, fees, and penalties and all that is mandated by the grant to be
Correct.
stated in there. But
We have the
we
ability.
have the ability to waive it case-by-case basis.
Correct.
If someone had put a flag holder in a tree, and we noticed it, my intention would be to communicate with their resident, explain why that's not healthy for the tree, and just ask them to move it. There's no desire to
Right.
start handing out tickets and fees. However, if someone girdles a tree, for instance, which I've seen people do, that's where you wrap a band or something around the tree, which actually cuts off the vascular system of the tree and effectively kills it, called girdling. That's a different story. I've had people simply cut down trees because they didn't like them. I would exercise discretion in a different manner for cases like that.
Are residents allowed to cut significant branches off Parkway trees, like if they just want a little more sun on their lawn, or?
We strongly discourage that, and technically could be considered damaging trees for a couple of reasons. One of which, while some people do know how to properly trim branches, many people don't. And I've seen people cut a branch off this big around, this far from the trunk, and then slap tar on the end, which is, something my dad would have done 50 years ago, but it's bad for the trees. So when someone calls us and says, hey, there's a branch hanging over the sidewalk, we go out right away and we remove that. So we really, really want residents to just call us. If it's presenting a hazard, we'll remove it.
So as a recap, the violations, fees, penalties, and the availability of a tree removal application are requirements of the grant, but with board guidance, our Public Works Director will have discretion. And that's the extent of what's covered through the ordinance. Are there any other questions?
I have one. Forgive my ignorance on this, but there's plenty of neighborhoods in Carroll Stream where the Parkway only exists on one side of the street. Is there any contemplation about the opposite side that doesn't have the Parkway, where where there are privately owned trees that would be in a Parkway if there was a sidewalk there? That we're going to be controlling any of that with this new management plan?
While there may only be sidewalk on one side of the street, there is actually Parkway on both sides.
Oh,
So
okay.
at some point, the village was only constructing walk on one side.
Right.
But that Parkway is generally equal on both sides of the street.
Okay.
There are also
I would presume
areas-
that there are people like me then that weren't aware of that, and that there are trees actually that I thought were mine, but are actually in the Parkway.
Could well be. There are some areas, say Thunderbird, just west of Gary, where the right-of-way is very wide, and what looks to be a private tree is actually in the Parkway.
Okay.
There are also trees, especially in that same area, that are now very large, that were planted on private property, but have grown partially at the trunk into the public right-of-way. We treat those, if any part of the trunk touches the Parkway, we treat those as public trees. In those cases also, we always confer with the resident, because some people are very particular about the trees that they planted, and, you know, there's some sentimental value to some families over the trees and who planted them. So we'll always confer with residents on those. But most people will say, thank you, this tree has gotten away from me, I can't take care of it. So if it's even partially in our Parkway, we'll take care of it. So you can, and any resident can always contact us and say, is this tree mine or is it the village's?
Okay.
Now, I should say during the inventory, the consultant who sent their workers out to inventory every single tree had our right-of-way widths with them. So the inventory should be fairly accurate now as to what is a Parkway tree and what is not.
And those right-of-way widths change from neighborhood to neighborhood, I presume?
Yeah, typically anywhere from 50 to 100 feet. Yeah, but generally 60 to 66 feet is fairly standard.
60 feet?
60 or 66?
From
30
center.
From the center of the road?
33
Okay.
feet from the center, yeah.
Okay.
That's my front door.
I'll hold the dummy end.
As an example of a tree that looks like it's on private property but wasn't, trustee Berger pointed out a tree on Lee's Road by the yellow unincorporated farmhouse that was losing branches, it was dying. So Public Works went out and looked at it, and it was actually in the right-of-way. So we actually removed that tree.
Good for you, Jim.
Just
The
making the
reason I'm
town
asking
safer.
is my property, I actually have, one side of my driveway has a parkway with a sidewalk, the other side doesn't. And we had a tree that needed to come down, and we did have Public Works come out, and it was like this far distance from that 60-foot thing. So it became my responsibility rather than the village's. So I'm just thinking in those open areas where we're planning on planting some new trees, I'm imagining that some of those neighborhoods have those non-sidewalk parkways. So there will be communication with the residents saying, look, we're thinking about putting a tree here.
Yes.
And if they refused, we'd probably cooperate and say, okay, we'll move to the next lot.
Sidewalk or no, if there's an open space in our right-of-way, we would try to plant a tree. But again, we're not going to plant a tree where somebody says,
No.
absolutely not, don't do that.
Okay.
Phil, with the lots that the houses were taken down in the floods areas, could we plant trees on those lots?
I think we discovered recently that we can. We have planted some in the Parkway adjacent to those lots. I hesitate to do that just because of the canopy that it could provide that might block out some of the sun we need for the pollinators, yeah.
Right, okay. Well, great job, both of you.
So for our next steps, we are kind of crossing the final Ts and dotting the final Is. The ordinance has gone through attorney review, and we have just received approval from the Morton Arboretum that it meets the grant requirements. So it would be our intent within the next few weeks to come back to the board with the urban forest management plan and the ordinance for your approval. As Phil stated earlier, the intent would be to get you copies of those documents well ahead so that you have time to review them, because there is a significant amount of information between both of them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, report of officers. Trustee Berger.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would like to acknowledge National Teachers Appreciation Week, which is this week. All of us obviously have been impacted by a teacher at some point in our lives. It's something near and dear to me because our oldest daughter is a elementary music teacher in the Milwaukee public school system, and our youngest will be heading off to ISU in the fall, and will be majoring in special education and minoring in sign language. So it's something that I wanted to recognize tonight. Also, something I would like to recognize is I'm big on milestones and anniversaries. I never forget my wedding anniversary either. This week is 1 year since I was sworn in as a trustee. And so I just want to thank everybody who have kind of helped me along, and those who, you know, maybe gave me the encouragement to run. I'm not making eye contact with anybody. Didn't take too big of a nudge because it was something I was interested in doing, but I just appreciate all the help from the staff, from my fellow trustees / coworkers up here, and helping me along in my first year. And you would think, being here for a year now, that I would remember that we do roll call before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, but, you know, I was a little excited about that tonight, so I wanted to get to that flag right away. So just wanted to express my thanks, and I'm still happy to be here, believe it or not.
Thank you very much, Trustee
That is
Berger.
my report.
Trustee Garvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I noticed in the weekly report that the cost of salt is actually going down.
It is.
That amazes me. It's about the only thing I can think of that the cost has gone down on recently.
Yeah, but we're not allowed to use anymore, so.
Well, it hasn't snowed.
What is wrong with you?
I just wanted to offer my congratulations to Jason Pauling, our street supervisor in Public Works, on how well received his presentation was to that association in Pittsburgh, and I offer my congratulations also on his recent certification as a Public Works professional supervision. I want to thank him for his continued efforts bringing our town to the national spotlight in his efforts. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Trustee Zalick.
Thank you, Pro Tem McCarthy. First off, I want to thank Jacobs Engineering for partnering with the village. Myself and Trustee Berger, I went to the Arbor Day tree planting event, and luckily I survived from the shovels and stuff. But you know, I want to thank them for making our community look even better than it did before. So thank you to Jacobs Engineering. The other parts of my report have a special meaning because I worked as a first responder and as the police department. I want to thank Anthony Simonetta for volunteering his time to be on the police pension board. It is not a paid position. I too was on the police pension board with Anthony when I was on the job, and it's thankless. You have a lot of money. I think we're up to, what, 60 million in the fund? Yep. So, and you don't get paid a cent, and you have a lot of responsibility, fiduciary responsibility. So thank you for your time and efforts, Anthony Simonetta. I want to thank Officer Kevin Babor for retiring. I went to his luncheon last Friday, and he's very happy. I told him that There are very, very little dead spots on that side of the fence, so welcome aboard to the club. I too want to thank Jason Pauling. You know, I worked alongside Jason Pauling, and you know, it's you look at, you know, Dan Staffy. You know, our first responders are recognized statewide and nationwide. I mean, statewide, Stan Staffy is training Illinois State Police troopers on DUIs. Our Dan Staffy is training the Illinois State Police on how to do DUIs. And now Jason Pauling, you know, was invited and a featured speaker in Pittsburgh. And it's like, it just, I'm very proud of our first responders in this town. Public Works, thank you, and police, thank you. So let's just keep them in our thoughts and prayers, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Trustee Frizzloni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I also want to congratulate Jason. I'm so proud of him. I mean, from running into burning houses to rescue people to being overly excited about snow season and putting together an 82-page report for us every year to read, and I do read all 82 pages of it, to practically counting every grain of salt that we have to make sure that we're going to get through the season. I mean, Jason's just, he's just a wonderful supervisor, and he really does deserve all of the accolades that he's getting. And especially because, again, people are like, Carol Stream, is that like a person? Like, is it a stream? So getting the name of our town out there at the national level is so super important because you guys just do great work. So congratulations to Jason and to all of Public Works, Phil. And Chief, I know that we lost Kevin to retirement and golf.
Lose nobody.
Yeah. But, you know, I did see that we've got a, that we have a new list. So looking forward to hiring some new police officers that are enthusiastic to do the job every single day and not counting the days until retirement. The breakfast was very, very nice for Kevin, so congratulations to the Baber family. I know if things get tough, he's just going to be sent golfing, is what I was told. We had a food drive a couple weeks ago. I know it feels like just short of forever ago, but I think people will remember the day because it was the only day in the last 400 days that it has been over 52 degrees and it did not rain. So we got into the 80s that day. It was bright, it was sunny, it was a little windy, but holy cow. We didn't know what to expect this year. The Rotary Club did an amazing job of organizing it like they always do every year. Trustee Berger and myself, Trustee Gieser was out there for a little while. The food just kept coming. And I think one of the things that maybe made a little bit of a difference this year is the Rotary Club, pre-pandemic actually, had reusable shopping bags printed up. They had sponsors, and those bags actually sat in storage for 2 years because it was supposed to be for the food drive from 2 years ago. But they got those bags out to the neighborhoods. They got their neighborhood captain list put together, and the bags were bright, visible, and people remembered that there was a food drive. And it was amazing to see the carloads of food, as the neighborhood captains would say, I only got through half of my area, I'll be back. And they literally made 2 or 3 trips just overflowing with food. And the other thing we found is that people were, I think, more generous because the bags hold more food than the plastic shopping bags. So like a couple of cans of vegetables didn't look like a lot. So all of a sudden, by the time they got done filling the bags were 5 pounds, 6 pounds, 7 pounds. And so we did notice when we were loading the vehicles, the bags were a little heavier this year than normal, which is absolutely amazing. So what we landed up doing is there was 6 food pantries or organizations that we donated to their food pantries. Every food pantry got 6 8-foot tables full, and that's top, bottom, sides, and we divided it very evenly. And pretty much every vehicle that we filled for all 6 of them, with the exception of the last one, because they brought a big box truck with pallets, and they had these big tubs. So we loaded up the two big tubs with all the blue bags, and then all the boxes went on pallets. So I would say their box truck was about 3/4 full, but every other vehicle, you couldn't see out the back sides. I was personally glad to be loading and not unloading. So congratulations to the Village of Carroll Stream, because it really was amazing. Again, coming out of COVID, we didn't know what to expect. And I was talking to the executive director for the Illinois Food Bank, and she's like, she asked me, oh, so how many towns are, donating to this? And I said, well, with the exception of District 93, they do have 2 schools, well, 3 schools technically that are outside of Carroll Stream. I said, this is all Carroll Stream. So this is what Carroll Stream does. We put out the word that we need stuff and where we need help, and it was absolutely amazing to watch. Thank you to Glenbard North. They sponsored the time and talent and the building if we needed it. There's always contingency plans for weather. Rotary was out there. They were at all the grocery stores collecting food. So this was truly a town effort, and was probably one of the most successful food drives that I've ever seen. So congratulations to the Rotary on that. We helped a lot of people. The only other thing that I just want to say is Mother's Day is this weekend. So I would like to wish our village clerk, Julia Schwarzy, a happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. You as well.
And Carol Rebholz, a very happy Mother's Day to you. And the rest of you guys, you have until Sunday. Sunday is Mother's Day. So remember your mothers, your wives, grandmothers, mother-in-laws. So you have Sunday. It's a little early this year, just so we're all clear. And with that, I will end my report.
Thank you very much. Our clerk, Julia Schwarzy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Just a couple quick things. We did make the license application deadline last Friday, the 30th. Everybody got their applications in, so nobody is going to go without a license for their gaming or their liquor. So, and thanks to all the hard work from my deputy clerk, Sherry Craig, who went above and beyond, spent extra hours trying to process this. All these different establishments, a lot of them send stuff in at the last minute. So she worked her butt off last week, so I really appreciate her help. Also good news that all the Carroll Stream officials' statements of economic interest were submitted in time. Couple at the 11th hour, but they got submitted in time, so nobody had to pay a penalty. So thanks, everybody, for getting that done. And just an announcement, I think we may have heard about this already, but in case people don't know, there is a Carroll Stream Outreach Community Center open house this Friday. From 3 to 5 p.m. is one time slot, and 6 to 8 p.m. is the other time slot. So it's this Friday, the 6th. And they're asking people to come out, support them. This is a great organization that supports some of our most vulnerable families, seniors, youth, families. So if you can, come out, take a tour, give a little donation. They could really use the help. So that's this Friday. And for everybody who celebrates it, happy Eid Mubarak. This is an important holiday for that faith. And last but not least, please shop and dine in Carroll Stream.
Thank you very much. Tia, any updates on anything?
As part of today's village board meeting, you approved a contract for Independence Day fireworks, which are scheduled for July 2nd. And I'm also able to announce at this time that we are receiving a partnership and covering the cost of those fireworks. Jacobs Engineering will be sponsoring the fireworks at $10,000.
That's
So
awesome.
we're very excited for this generous sponsorship, and we're looking forward to having just a fun summer full of events.
You got a few events this month, don't you?
We do. So May 21st, start your morning off with a little community good by working the pond and stream sweep, helping keep Carroll Stream beautiful. Take a short break and then come on over to Town Center, and we're going to have our first ever Geekfest. And we're very excited about this. We have support from businesses across the community and working with the Carroll Stream Library. I've also gotten word that some members of the 501st are planning to come out and celebrate all things geek with us. If you're not familiar with the 501st, they are a group of Star Wars fans all across the country that do some very detailed cosplay and costuming in the characters, and they'll come out to public events for free and just spend time with the kids, take pictures, and really show that spirit of the fandom. So we're excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Great job on that. I mean, like I said, not necessarily my cup of tea, but I think it was a fantastic idea you came up with, and I think it's great something new.
Yep, so come on out to Carroll Stream Town Center. Geekfest will be from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Speaking of, you brought up 4th of July. I know trustee Geezer's not here, but I know there's a Culver's.
For the parade
Yeah, what-
on May,
18th.
I think it's 18th, yeah.
and that's, you don't need a flyer. You just go in and you can eat lunch, you can eat dinner, you can eat
Culver's.
both at Culver's Carroll Stream.
Okay.
Good call. Thank you very much, Tia.
Thank you.
Our attorney.
I have no report this evening.
All right, thank you very much. And our village manager, Bob, what do we got?
Thank you. In addition to the 2 employees that were recognized by the board, a couple of other employees. Last week, IT Director Mark Talavera was the opening speaker at the Municipal GIS Consortium Leadership Roundtable event to discuss, among other things, the strategic goals of the GIS organization. Mark is currently the president of that organization, so he represents us very well there. And last Friday, Assistant to the Village Manager, Tia Messino, participated as a panelist on community branding, which is a village board goal, at the Illinois Association of Municipal Management Assistants annual conference. So
Very nice.
they
Did
a
you show
great
them all
job.
the Geekfest branding you've been doing?
She did.
I did. It
Okay.
did
It's
take
awesome.
over more of the presentation than I had intended, and several people came up asking me for flyers and the date and time so they can attend.
Yeah, you've done an excellent job with that.
Yes.
So if you didn't get that out, I would have been disappointed.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. It's absolutely awesome that we have so many experts in their field on our staff, from people in public works to finance to IT to village management department. That is the reason so many good things happen in the village. Yeah, we've got a great staff, top to bottom, and even something like today, this urban forest program. What a great way to help the earth out a little bit is just have something in order and have plans in place that give us the ability to make sure we know what we have and can increase our canopy and can increase oxygen levels and decrease pollution levels just by making sure to take care of what we already have and adding on to it. So I want to thank all the staff, everybody top to bottom. Kevin Babor, congratulations on your retirement. I hate retirements because that just means we lose another one of exactly what I said, another one of our experts that we now have to train a new one. Got that, Chief? Need a new expert. But again, more than anything, thank you, everybody. Got to celebrate our grandbaby's 1-year birthday last month, and it was a ton of fun. We had a ton of people over. It was actually at the Park District, but that's a magical thing, this whole grandparenting thing. And we were even lucky enough to have, he's in the audience, Prairie Station, Joe and Jen actually played at it, and it was a riot, and we got the babies dancing around and giggling a whole lot. So, no, that is, it's, the grandparent thing is just so different, and I had tons of people tell me that before we had it, and they go, you don't understand, it is completely, and it is. It's a gift, more than anything. So just had to shout out a happy birthday to Dean and Madison. With that, we do not have an executive session, so I will take a motion.
Before you do that, can I acknowledge, I forgot to do that.
Absolutely.
We've got some guests in the audience, and I'm going to guess that you guys are here because you're in a U.S. government class and you need to observe a village board meeting in order to pass your class. Is that correct?
Glenbard North,
Lombard North?
Erica Bray Parker.
Yes.
Shocking.
Before we adjourn our meeting, do you guys have any questions for the village board that you guys would like to ask? I know you guys walked in right as we were doing listening post, so, but, I mean, do you have any questions? Or would you like to privately ask us questions after the meeting? We just want to make ourselves available to you so you can complete whatever project that you guys need to complete. And just say thank you so much for coming to our to our board meeting. It's been 2 years, actually, since we've had students be able to come in, so it's really interesting to have you guys back in here. But if you have any questions, now's the time. Otherwise, we're going to adjourn our meeting, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to grab one of us and ask us anything and everything. And if you have questions on how the village works, these are the experts. You have every department head here, and they are literally, I think, as you may have heard, the experts in their field. So welcome, and if you have any questions, please ask. Okay.
No problem, but welcome. Say hi to Ms. Parker first.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Frusaloni, seconded by trustee Zalick. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Berger.
Aye.
Trustee Garvey.
Aye.
Trustee Zalick.
Aye.
Trustee Frusaloni.
Aye.
Trustee McCarthy.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.